Looks like we've had quite a few folks join. Thanks so much for making time this afternoon to join the Back to School Tech Town Hall with ITS. I am Alex Crystal. I'm the manager of communication and training for ITS. And I won't waste any time. I'll turn it right over to our CIO, Matt Kunkel.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Alex. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon, and we really appreciate you all joining ITS for this Tech Town Hall. This is actually an activity that we hope to be able to do more frequently in the future as we continue to have new projects or services or additional pieces of communication that we'd like to share with you. We will be taking questions at the end or during, so please put them in. Let us know what kinds of things you're thinking about, what additional information we can provide, and happy to do so. Or if we don't know the answer, we'll get back to you. So with that, we're going to kick off today by really taking a look at really a historical topic. And so we're gonna jump in. If you'll go to the next slide, Alex, thank you, and look at the campus technology investment. And so many of you may recall that a while ago, ITS was provided additional strategic investment funds from the university in order to really help bolster and support IT operations. This had a lot to do with legacy deferred maintenance, but also in supporting really strategy for the future in order to help us grow and sustain as a university. And so today we kind of wanted to talk through what ITS has been doing with that investment and how we have been going about really building out these concepts in support of UCR. And so you're going to see here, we've got this initial donut where we've really broken down this concept. So you've got this initial piece, this 2.4 million, that's really related to cybersecurity, data privacy, et cetera, including infrastructure. And then on this other side, it was really about the people support and the other things that we could do, and really more in providing service. If you'll go on to the next slide, Alex. So in that 2.4 million, right? So this includes a number of things. And so some of these efforts, a number of these efforts are currently underway. So when we look at the network, telecom, and infrastructure pieces, this is heavily about networking and then also telephony. So many of you may have seen over the last couple of years, at least the last year while I have been here, where we have seen outages related not only to networking, but also related to telephony, and specifically things like E911, where we've had outages for a number of hours. Those kinds of challenges really are underpinned and related to our core network infrastructure, legacy deferred maintenance, and a number of just very old pieces of hardware. And so this ongoing piece, is really related to how we're deploying and implementing a number of significant upgrades, but also deploying new network concepts across UCR. If you'll go to the next slide, Alex. And one more. There you go. So in phase one, these are the buildings that we're actively performing network upgrades in. So a number of these buildings and this work is underway today. And so, this includes upgrading network switches, wireless access, the core routing at the edge, but then also building out and deploying software-defined networking. So, this is where, for those of you that don't know, software-defined networking allows us to grant you access to the network really based on who you are, not where you are. And so rather than a physical location being granted access to a specific access point like the research DMZ. Instead, we can now begin to do this by individual. This also allows us to better understand where we need high-speed interconnectivity and routing across the core. We're also actively making upgrades to the core speeds. And so we're moving to, Jeremy's going to kill me here if I get these wrong. I believe we're doing 100 gigabyte cards at the core. And so, and then we're doing interconnect with buildings at 40. And so it's a significant upgrade where we still have some buildings that are connected still on 1 gig drops. In some cases, it's a very limited throughput. So we're expecting significant upgrades. Alex, if you go to the next slide, you can then see as we break this down, the additional buildings that are built out in phases 2 and 3. And so we're going to see really an entire university network refresh. This is, I would estimate that this is going to take 5 to 7 years of work. This is an ongoing process. Some of it is partly due to our ability to deploy. It's also our ability to get access to the appropriate gear and equipment. Or in some cases, we're working very closely with PDNC on the deployment, of new buildings. And so it's really just an aligned strategy for how we can make a holistic upgrade and support UCR in all of our endeavors related to networking. Next slide, Alex. So the other part of that donut, was really related to, where and how are we supporting additional people in providing services and systems to UCR. And so here we really wanted to share a breakdown of those FTE and where we brought people in to provide very specific and additional direct support. And so I'm not going to run through each of these categories. But we continue, to see demand in all of these areas, and in some cases, these are strategic priorities that are really being driven by not only the regions, but by also our need to grow and mature in providing support. In the related infrastructure, but then also in the services that are being delivered. And I think that you can clearly see some of those things starting to come to fruition in the work that we've done with Impact 23 and our data and analytics, additional security measures that are in place, from the team and just helping us be more secure in monitoring our logging and network traffic. And then also additional support that we've been working on in research computing as some examples. Next slide, Alex. So just to give you an understanding of what that security investment breaks looks like, because that is also a significant piece. And you just heard me mention the logging, the identity management. Many of you should be aware that we went through a major upgrade of identity. This was Fisher or I am Riverside. And so we have been making a lot of investment in this area to not only facilitate faster access to our services through increased accounts, but also to gain additional, visibility into the networking and log traffic on our systems. This includes automated responses to help us bring systems back up faster, know when systems are coming down, understanding when we're having an issue. We've seen a significant reduction in our time to be able to not only be aware of when a service is having an issue, but also how quickly we can bring that service back up should it actually fail. But more frequently, we're now seeing our capacity increased to stop services from coming down due to this additional visibility within our environment. Next slide. Thank you. So the funding that we were talking about at the beginning was really related to, our multi-year commitments and ongoing support. And so here we wanted to really give you an understanding and a breakdown of what are additional areas where ITS has made additional one-time commitments as well with our cash funding. And so we've been bringing in, additional excuse me. We've been bringing in additional upgrades to some of our conference and classroom spaces. We've been working directly with athletics on helping to support the live streaming of UCR events through ESPNU. We've been actively working on migration to Google services for things like point and click and other critical infrastructure pieces. On the multi-year side, and we're going to get into some more of these a little later, we've really been working to align the enterprise platform and the services that are available to all people at UCR. And so there were a number of services historically where not everyone had access, or the way in which a system was deployed really maybe needed to be rethought. And so this list really reflects a number of additional pieces that we've been actively deploying and working on today. So you see IAM Riverside here. You see Slack, which we're going to get into a little bit later. We have actively funded additional storage for Google Workspace. We've deployed Google Cloud for a number of enterprise workloads. And then we brought on services like Chronicle, which is a SIM solution for security analysis and threat hunting. Next slide. So to give you a sense of kind of how this multi-year commitment breaks down, this slide just gives you a sense of the overall spend. And again, the commitments that ITS is making in improving our infrastructure and in bringing you improved service. Next slide. You've heard me mention several times GCP. You hopefully heard our announcements and various communications related to Google Cloud over the last year. And so we wanted to give you a sense of what does that mean? What have we deployed? What have we brought on to the Google Cloud platform? And so this is a breakdown of the services that we have moved or are moving onto the GCP platform. Ultimately, these represent a net savings in cost related to our overall operation. We've also, again, seen our ability to deploy and our time to deployment go down significantly. So we're now in days and weeks versus weeks and months, or in some cases, years for being able to deploy services. We also have seen significant improvement in our ability to deploy really the virtual hardware that's needed in configuring these environments and in bringing them up, testing them, and then making sure that they're resilient over a period of time. Next slide, Alex. So the last one is just bringing this all the way back to the strategy for ITS. So this ties into ITS's strategic plan. And so you can just kind of see here how we've stacked this overall concept, the services that we're bringing, the values that we're standing on, and then how this is ultimately driving our strategic vision. All right. So that is one dense topic. So thank you for that, Alex. This was a good one. All right. So I'm also up next, talking a little bit about the ITS and the School of Medicine IT partnership. I really like this quote. So this is a really good quote from Einstein. We really just have to think differently. And so, as you heard us run through a number of the investments that we've been making and the services that we've been, working to bring to UCR, ultimately in trying to think differently, we're also trying to reduce that complexity. It's an understanding that UCR is an educational institution, and we are ultimately here to help support and serve the delivery of education. And in doing so, we recently have reorganized with SOM IT, making them part of ITS, and really helping to consider how we might ultimately operate together and what that might look like from a service delivery perspective. Next slide. Yeah. So when you look at this, currently the School of Medicine and UCR Health have a very close relationship with San Diego Health, and now also with ITS in providing that holistic support for UCR Health and the School of Medicine. We are not looking to bring some IT into ITS, but rather working on how we can work more closely together in delivering the mission for the School of Medicine and for UCR Health. Next slide, Alex. So along those lines, really gets at how we need to build, maturity and service. And so hopefully you all have had the opportunity to tour the new School of Medicine 2 building. I think this is a significant representation of the growth trajectory that the School of Medicine and UCR Health are on. It's an absolutely fantastic building. And in that regard, we're continuing to drive this maturity model in order to help meet the strategic initiatives. And so if you go to the next slide, Alex, I'm going to go one more. Yep, that one. So you can really see that as we look at kind of where and how we need to proceed in helping to support UCR Health and the School of Medicine, ultimately it's really thinking about how we can drive a maturity model that helps deliver increasing service that's really aligned to the health mission and the health strategy overall. But when you line this up with the ITS strategic plan, I think this is the next slide, Alex, if I remember correctly. Yep, there we go. You can see that these things overlap and actually tie and flow together very well. And so as we can consider how we bring in additional scaled support structures, how we help the different services that are delivered by SOM IT today and by ITS grow and mature. The idea here is that we can ultimately do that more together and in close alignment, while then being able to stand the very unique service needs for UCR Health and the School of Medicine on that platform. So that way they're able to deliver those services faster or at an increased efficiency. So we've already been actively working on several projects where we've really been able to help reduce some costs and or accelerate the efforts and work that were already underway by the School of Medicine IT team. Next slide. Okay, and with that, I'm going to turn things over to Terry.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So yeah, let's go to the next one, Alex. Thank you. So here, just to give a brief update on the gender recognition and live name policy, which for those of you who may not be familiar, hopefully all of you are though, it is the new policy that essentially states that all university systems must recognize and use a person's lived name and their gender identity. Our campus also opted to include pronouns in the scope of our implementation. So you'll see some reference to that as well that's not actually called out in the policy. So very proud that we are able to say that we are the first UC campus to be in compliance for our student systems with the deployments that we did in early September. Many other campuses are still working on that for their the December timeline that we were given. Many of the administrative systems that you probably use today may already be compliant. There's a few others that we're still working on, and we are definitely on track to make that happen by this summer, June 30th, 2024. So very, very excited, very proud that we were able to get this done. It took lots of folks across the campus for many years. I was on committees back from 2018 talking about this change and how we might do it. And that really led us, I think, to being able to complete this on time and do it very successfully over the last couple of years. If you have any other questions about this policy, or you want resources about how to engage with your coworkers or staff, or really anything, I'm pasting in the chat a link to the Chancellor's Task Force, where we have all of that information ready and available for you. Okay, I get to go to the next fun topic, Slack. So hopefully you have by now received an email from ITS about Slack. And I know many of you have, because I've seen posts in the UCR Welcome channel. I'm excited that people are already out there engaging. I think I even saw a request for a dad joke channel already. So I was really encouraged that people just kind of got right to it. It's really easy for you to get into Slack. You just follow these steps here. And if you have any trouble logging on, or you have any questions about Slack, or really want more information about it that I don't cover today, please go to our resource website. Tons of great information there. All right, so the most frequent question we get about Slack is, does this mean I have to stop doing other things? And the answer is no, but what we hope is that you're going to give it a try, and you'll find that you'll want to, and that you'll want to be on Slack, because there's a lot of great reasons why Slack, it helps with everything that we do in our day-to-day, both students, faculty, and staff. It encourages communications and engagements. We have the integration with Canvas, where faculty can spin up their own workspaces for their courses every term. Departments have their own workspaces. There's project workspaces, kind of the gamut. So whether you have an urgent question, whether you want to organize a club event, whether you want to start a discussion on and have it be asynchronous, or you just want to kind of find out where the best place to eat is on campus, this Slack community that we build together can be the source for those answers, and to helping increase those engagement and communication, both within your department and across the campus. Additionally, there's a lot of integrations that we have ready and available for Slack. You can set up customized notifications so that it helps you decide where you focus your time. I personally have my calendar, and I have Google Drive turned on. And so what's really great is that I don't have to hunt through email finding a link to that document that somebody shared with me. I just go to my little Google Drive application, and I scroll, and there it is. So I have found it to really help my own personal productivity, and hope that you guys check that out for yourselves as well. Slack is secure, it's accessible, flexible, and we really hope that you all log in and check it out. And to help you, encourage you to do that, on our next slide, we have some great opportunity for you to win some cool prizes. So all you have to do is log into Slack, update your profile picture, check out our channels, post a welcome, a message and welcome, just say hi. It doesn't have to be anything, crazy, and you will be entered to win. Let me read you. October 26th. If you do that by then, you'll be able to have a chance to win great prizes, including that Amazon gift card. So I really hope that we see you all on Slack.
Wonderful, Terry. Thank you so much. We're going to go back just one slide for a second, Alex. We have a few questions on Slack, and so take a minute maybe to talk about them now. I think would be good, and then we'll jump on through. So one of the questions, Terry, is Slack only for UCR communities or all UCs?
So the Slack instance that I'm talking about is the UCR Enterprise Slack grid, they call it. However, the great thing about Slack is you can connect to other Slack instances. And so UC does have a Slack instance that they have, UC Tech anyway, I should say. If there's a vendor you're working with, if they have Slack, you can actually connect with them through our Slack and have all of those communications kind of be in one place. But the information on this is just the UCR Enterprise Slack.
And Terry, I'm going to ask some additional questions just because I'm sure these are burning in people's minds. if I want a channel, how do I go about getting my own channel for my org or group? Or and I'm not going to use the right terminology here either, because I know Slack has their own. And yeah, so maybe help us all understand, what does that look like?
Sure. So the UCR community is actually technically what they call a workspace. And in that workspace, anyone can create a channel. You can create both public and private channels. Those of you who have been engaged on Impact 23 know that there's support channels in there that you may already be using and engaging on. We also have workspaces that individual organizations or departments can have, and that really kind of locks it down, and you decide who is in that workspace. So the people who are in your area. It can be people across the campus that you add to that. You can also add guests to it, but we actually have a great form that is in Slack. I think it's Slack requests is the channel, and if you go there and you think you want your own workspace, you can request it there. If you have Slack already that you pay for through your own department funds, or it's one that it's a free version, you can also reach out to us through that Slack request channel and use the form to ask us to move you to the enterprise grid. We tried to do that as much as possible for folks, but there might be still some out there, and you get a lot of great benefits by coming on the grid. All the kind of the pro tools and all of those things get extended. So we do encourage people who are kind of paying on their own right now, come to the grid. We'll welcome you.
Yeah, including which that cost would go away. So
Yeah.
you would no longer have that cost. We have no added cost for adding you. And you, if I'm correct, Terry, you still retain all of the control that you had before.
You have all the control, and IT is, our admins might have access to do things, but it's all within your control.
Yeah. One other question we had here, Terry, was the ability to bring in external users into Slack. And I don't know if that's in a specific workspace or in something, in a channel, but maybe can you talk about externally bringing in an outside user? This question was specifically in the context of research.
Okay. So if they already have a Slack account through Slack Connect, it's called Slack Connect, you can essentially go through the steps there to add them to your workspace. We also do allow guest users to be created, and the workspace owner is the one who's kind of responsible for reaching out and having that, adding that guest to their channel. We have information on our knowledge base articles, also on our website, that explain that process for how to do that.
Yeah. So the answer there that I'm hearing then is yes, Terry.
Yes.
You could bring in those external people, and that could even be in a controlled, limited, managed channel. So if you were just engaging with a research group, you wanted to bring in several external colleagues, you could host that as UCR in working with those collaborators on your research.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. We got one more. We're prompting more questions here, Terry. Slack team Zoom chat is the path forward to just use Slack for communication. Yeah, so let me maybe I can take this one for just a second. So, on the strategy, right? So let's talk a little bit about licensing and access. So you heard me in the opening talk about platforms that are available for all, and are really truly enterprise platforms. Currently, Teams is only used by staff. Zoom chat is not available. I think maybe everyone has it. I don't know. That's one of those. Again, it's a more limited deployment of Zoom chat. Faculty and students have Google Chat. And then I'm sure I'm forgetting some chat platform here that we also all use. But anyways, the idea here was that Slack really facilitates an interconnect between those who want to share work product that they're doing in Teams, or those that want to share work product that they're doing in Google Workspace, and allows us to do integrated configurations with Canvas for teaching and learning, and managed enrollment. So there's a lot of sort of added benefit because everyone has access to Slack. It also works with the work productivity tools that you might already be using today. And so it's really just a very inclusive platform for our current technology ecosystem. So again, as Terry said at the beginning, you don't have to use it, but you definitely can, and we encourage you to do so because all UCR users are there. Okay, what was the name of the channel for support in Slack, Terry?
Slack-requests, I believe, is the name of the channel. And it's a global channel. So if you have a workspace for your organization, you actually should see it there as well. And there's some instruction. You just do the little drop down and there's a form to fill out. So, but if you have any questions or you can't find it, shoot me a Slack and I'll help you.
There you go. Is Slack secure? Yes, is the answer to that question. Now, I really want to emphasize that in considering how Slack is secure, this is also now dependent on you as a user and who you're now having a conversation with. So if you were to have a discussion in an open channel on protected or sensitive information, then you could be breaching, FERPA or HIPAA or some other regulatory compliance framework, and please don't do that. But if you are in a if you're in a closed channel or a locked channel, or you're in a direct message environment with an individual user, yes, you can share protected and sensitive information. We do have a BAA on Slack. As we continue to partner with SOM IT, we're further evaluating the utilization of Slack for the School of Medicine and UCR Health. But yes, is the answer to that question. But I do ask you to do so responsibly, just as you would in any other tool that we use today, where you can grant access to different users.
I do want to quickly note, as Terry mentioned, there is a Slack resource webpage, its.ucr.edu/Slack. There's great information there, resources, some answers to questions that were asked here. And in terms of security, one of the benefits of Slack is because this is a UCR system, it is much more secure than Discord, for example, which is not hosted by the university in any way. With that, it looks like we've answered all the open questions. So we'll move on to our next topic and then use the rest of the time to answer any remaining questions folks have.
Sounds great. Thanks, Alex. So we would be remiss if we did not mention artificial intelligence or generative AI at least once in this presentation. And so I wanted to take the opportunity to really just sort of talk about what are we doing at UCR and what are tools and services or concepts that we'll be deploying. And so just being frank, today's slide is much more of a tease than a very clear, go here, do this, here's what we can support. But I wanted to talk about what was available, some of the things that we're doing today already, areas where you can help us, and kind of the frame that we're and how we're thinking about this. So you've heard us talk for a while about Google, and I really want to emphasize that we have a very close partnership with Google, and we've had the opportunity to get access to a number of their platforms early. And we're working on getting a number of services deployed. So some of those services that are coming. So if you've not yet seen Duet for Google Cloud, this is specifically for Workspace. We are actively working on pinning down being able to procure Google Workspace. We will be making an announcement and sending a communication soon on how you would go about getting access, associated cost, etc., and how you would be able to use Duet directly within your Google Workspace. Zoom AI, so Zoom 2 weeks ago at their conference announced the inclusion of their AI platform as part of Zoom. And so we will be looking to actively turn that on, I would guess, at the beginning of November. And this will do things like do summarization of meetings. It will do, can you go back, Alex? Summarization of meetings. And, it will allow you to do transcription and, other interesting things that are very specific to Zoom. But again, in an individual user managed space, right? So basically you can decide what you want the AI to do relative to your meetings. It's not generally accessible. Just like if you create a recording today, you have to decide how and where to share that information from within that meeting, etc. So additionally, we have some other tools that are listed here, and I'm now actually going to hand it over to Mike to talk a little bit more about some of the things that we're piloting this fall and some other tools that are available that really help build and develop AI at a broader scale. Mike?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. I think probably the one I want to highlight first is it says Google Notebook, but it's also known as Notebook LM. And really, this is a really exciting thing that I'm personally excited about, that I think many of the folks on campus I've talked to are also very excited about. So we've had a lot of questions from specifically faculty, but others on campus saying, hey, I have my own content. How do I build generative AI around my own content? And so Notebook LM is really kind of a great answer to that. So Notebook LM is a tool that allows you to pull in your own content and kind of build your own, it's called a model, build your own AI model. So you can ask questions about it, right? So you can imagine if you are teaching a course and you want to be able to, you have some documents that either you've written yourself or you brought in as part of the instruction of the course. You can now build a Notebook LM instance and pull all of that data and then start to ask questions. And you know that the answers you're getting back are from that content that you brought in. So this is very early. And really, the reason why we're even able to use this tool is because of this relationship that we built with Google. Google is really only working with a handful of campuses across the United States, and UCR is one of them. So we already have a few faculty who are beginning to try this, and we're looking to roll this out more as we go forward. So on the right side, this is really if you are one of those people on campus who really want to get into the nuts and bolts of what generative AI can do. So within the Google Cloud platform, we have a number of ways to explore interesting ways to build models around text answer things that you might be familiar with using Google Bard or ChatGPT. You can kind of build your own model around that, maybe fine tune it additionally with your own data. If you're interested in generating images, we have tools that can be available for you to do that. If you're interested in learning code or you want to write code, there are tools for that. So at the end of the day, really the message is reach out if you're interested in this topic, be part of the conversation. I guess the one other plug that I'll put in as well is, Terry mentioned Slack. So there's a whole forum, a whole workspace that we have in place right now today for talking about AI on campus. Join that, right? After you join the UCR community workspace that Terry just talked about, join the AI forum, be part of the conversation. Ultimately, we need to figure out the best way. How do we use this on campus? What are the use cases? How can we partner together in really determining how to use these tools? I mean, this is changing every day. Probably, if I look at, even some of the things that were on this slide maybe have changed just since we started talking. A little bit of exaggeration, but not totally. I mean, this is really moving very, very fast, and it really is important for us to talk together as a community and figure out how we want to use these things. So definitely join the forum. You can also Slack me. Love to have. Almost every day I'm talking to faculty and staff on campus about how they want to use AI and how we can help them. So please reach out to me on Slack or on email if you'd like to talk more. Love to have the conversation.
Wonderful. Thanks, Mike. So I have a few questions, maybe to just get us started a little bit. So I see a lot of different models that are listed here. I know Google has some first-party models that they've released, but are you able to maybe speak just a little more to Google's approach on being very inclusive and open with models?
Yeah. So Google has really taken the approach of being open with bringing in models. So, I mean, you see there's a number of listed here, right? If you go into Model Garden, I'm probably guessing there are maybe 250 or more models that are available. Some of them, a few of them are Google provided. So Palm, for example, Palm 2, these are the models that they built that actually back up Google Bard, many of the tools that ultimately will be in Workspace once that's available to campus. But it will allow you to kind of take their version of the model and build your own, right? Take a copy of it as is, and then add maybe your own data in there. But the great thing, I think the most important takeaway is it's in really I guess a walled garden, if you would think of it that way, right? So you can rest assured that if you're bringing in sensitive data, if you're bringing in data that you really need to ensure that it's not being used to train these models, if you're using the consumer version of ChatGPT that's out there, for example, they're very clear that they will take your data, they will take what you ask and the data you put in there, and they will use that to train the model, right? So that's a challenge, right? If this is sensitive data, you don't want getting out. Certainly from our own policies on campus, that's important to consider. But we know that if you're using these models, even the open source ones, right, the ones that are provided from Meta, for example, Facebook, it's now known as Meta. They have a very popular model out there, Llama 2, that's on there. You know that you can take that model and actually work with it, but it's in this garden. You can put your own data in there, and that's not going to get out and be used by Google or others to train the model. And it's safe in that sense.
Yeah, so I really want to maybe lean more into that concept for a second, Mike. So from the security perspective, right, this is all about data management. And we don't, of course, want to inadvertently send UCR data external, right? So it's a challenge of exfiltration. And so can you maybe just speak a little bit more from an enterprise perspective to how our data is protected in using this environment within the UCR domain?
Yeah. So Google, within the Google Cloud Platform, they have concepts of what I guess I would call a tenant. And so it's really a playground. You think of it maybe as a building that's really focused on UCR. So once we have access to this, once you're given a project within this, and when anything you use is really in the context of that project. And so Google really at the core, at the very low level of how they've architected their entire infrastructure, they don't even have access to this data. So it's encrypted at rest. If I were to call up to them and say, hey, I have a problem, I can't get to my own data, they're going to say, I'm sorry, we don't have access to it either. This is really on you to figure it out. And so, but that's obviously two sides of the coin, right? It's your data, it's your responsibility, but at the same time, you know that it's secure because only you and who you have allowed access to have access to that data.
Yeah, thank you. So, so if you're interested in getting more up to speed on what we're doing with AI, please don't hesitate to reach out to Mike. We'll also get you plugged into the AI forum. And then again, like I said at the opening, you can expect additional communications coming from us on access to these tools that can be operated safely within the UCR environment. And hopefully start providing you value add in your everyday work. I've seen some pretty exciting demos around Duet. So again, I encourage you to get on YouTube and watch some of the Duet demos. They're very powerful in how it works across different environments and has the ability to do a lot of different tasks and concepts. Let's see here, Alex. We have one more question. Give me a second to read this. Yeah, so this is a very interesting question, right? Really kind of related to either hallucination concepts, and or really related to sourcing and being able to validate an output from an AI. And so I think this is going to be one of those that, there's various tuning that's available. So right now, when you do some direct comparison between like Bard as the publicly available Google tool and, a ChatGPT 3 or a ChatGPT 4, you can definitely tell that they have been tuned or controlled for differently. So I don't know that it's one is more or less powerful. I just get the sense that the tuning variables around how they've been modeled really just are different in concept. I think Google's approach, I'll call it a little safer. They're just a little more methodic in the rate at which they're releasing and or making adjustments or empowering their AI models. They of course are modeled on slightly different data with slightly different concepts in mind. And so it is important though that as you're looking at results of information or misinformation, that you're understanding and looking at the sourcing. And so Mike, do you know, is it in, I forget if it's in Duet where we can actually see the source of the information. Within Notebook, it's a contained source because you're selecting the source.
Yeah, Bard is certainly getting better about actually sourcing where some of the results are from, but that's still an emerging capability within the broader Google platform.
Yeah. So, but it is something that's at the forefront of how they're thinking about AI and allowing people to understand where and how that information was synthesized and from which sources, and even sections of what of the response and which sections were generated from which sources. So it's a really interesting question.
If I can mention one other thing too, I think to be aware of hallucinations, like Matt said, are really one concern, absolutely. And some of these, again, that means these models are sometimes responding with data that isn't quite accurate. But I think another probably more serious thing to consider, right, when using these tools is that the training data that they're ultimately trained on, human bias is inherently in some of that training, right? And so you will often see responses come up that have some bias that's implied. There was an example just mentioned recently at a talk I was at. A faculty member had shown a question was asked, about a scenario between a professor and a student. Genders were not mentioned in the question, but the response came back assuming that the professor was male and the student was female, right? So where did that come from? Obviously, there was nothing in the question, but that came from the training data. So it's still important to consider that when using these models and how you tune them, especially before you put it out in something, to something that's kind of to our students or to the public. And so definitely there takes a little bit of work. So again, I guess it goes back to let's talk. Let's understand what you're doing so we can kind of help you, work through that bias potential.
Yeah. So you've heard us talk a lot about Google and what we're doing and different tools that are coming. I will also note, we're working with a number of different providers. So we also have a pilot with a product called WordTune, which is based on, I'm going to not remember the dinosaur name that they named that model after, Mike.
I don't remember.
It's good. Jurassic. That's what it is. It's Jurassic LLM. We're also, actively working with UCOP on getting some direct engagements with OpenAI. So, I want to make it clear, right? We're exploring all venues. We're trying to do so in a safe way for our data and for the enterprise. But we do want to work to actively empower you all in this space as quickly as we can because it is moving fast. And I know that there's a lot of interest, and there are a lot of tools coming onto the market daily. And we really want to help provide you with tools that will facilitate your work, at UCR, in a way that you can feel confident in. So with that, thank you, Alex. We are over time. And as Alex said, the recording will be available. Thank you all so much for joining us today, and we look forward to doing these again in the future.